Hi, everybody. I'm one of the FTC Iowa staff. I am an alumni of some great Iowa teams, so it's really exciting being here with you guys today. And, if things come up, don't be afraid to use chat. Don't be afraid to unmute yourself. But just for the ease of it, we're going to mute all of the chats for now. So we have a really cool game this year, and we have our awesome resources of both game manuals and the forums. This is just going to be a quick overview of some of the rules and just some pretty key information that all teams should keep in mind as they proceed in the season, as they build their robots and get ready for competition. So this right here is on the first website. It's in the resource library for FTC. And it has the game manuals, not only by game manual 1 and 2, but broken up into all of the sections and the appendixes. Yeah, and a one-page game description, which I'm sure we're all familiar with now. It also has a lot of really cool field materials, so the navigation targets, field setup guide, field assembly guides, videos, promotional materials, Q&A, which it's in here. That's where you can find the forums, and forums do trump the game manual. So once we go through the game manual, we're going to go through the forums and how to get set up and logged in, because it's very, very key to know. Yeah, and also in this web page are the control award instructions, submission form, self-inspection checklist, and field and self-inspection field checklist. Which these are all also in Game Manual Part 1, but they're just straight here for that. So we're going to go into Game Manual Part 1. And the first thing that we are going to look at is just Parts 1 and 2, and it's gracious professionalism. This is something that we should all be very familiar with, because gracious professionalism is what makes FTC so great. So it defines the first tech challenge, and it also defines the first core values. These are key for your teams to keep in mind as they go throughout the season. They should really be driving what you do. And then section 2, gracious professionalism. It also has a really nice link to Woody Flowers describing it. Awesome stuff. Really recommend watching that video. So the next thing we're going to go over is sections 3 through 6, which is the tournament. Specifically, we're going to be looking at setup and style, so our league meets versus the tournaments, and so on and so forth. So 3.1 overview. This is just an overview of the section, like the overview of section 3. It tells you why the section's here. And then 3.2 is a bunch of tournament definitions. I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with this, but it can never hurt to brush up on it. It also has a really key definition for human player. And, with the human player, a rule is that there can only be one human player per alliance. This is defined in here. And it also says which team decides what the human player is. So if an alliance cannot decide quickly, the team listed in match list as red 1 or blue 1 for the alliance has the responsibility for naming the human player. And human players are new this year. It also defines our ranking point system, which I believe has changed from last year. So ranking points, the first basis for ranking teams. Teams earn ranking points for winning 2 points, tying 1 point, and losing or disqualification no-show, which you get no points in a qualification match. This is different from our tiebreaker points, which is the second basis for ranking teams. Tiebreaker points are used as the tiebreakers when teams have equal ranking points. Tiebreaker points are awarded in the amount of the final score of the losing alliance in the qualification match. Both alliances receive the pre-penalized score of the losing alliance as their tiebreaker points. So, if Team A wins the match and they scored 100 points, and Team B scored 75 points, both teams in Alliance A would get 75 points for their tiebreaker points. Section 3.3 goes over tournament rules, and I don't believe any of the egregious behavior rules are new, but it's very key to go over them. So egregious behavior by any team, team member, or other representative of the team So anyone who may be wearing your shirt or just maybe with your team, the parents, people from your school who are coming to support you, though they are representative of your team, is not tolerated at a First Tech Challenge tournament. It also is not tolerated at league meets. Violations of this rule will result in penalties to the team and/or the issuance of a yellow or red card. Egregious behavior includes, but is not limited to, repeat and/or flagrant violation of game rules, unsafe behavior or actions, uncivil behavior towards volunteers, competition personnel, or tournament attendees. So, safety glasses in pit areas and competition fields. I know that not every team has enough safety glasses for all of the parents and for everyone who wants to come see the team in the pit, but it is very key that you have those on at all times. Entering spaces meant for volunteers, so the scoring table, especially with all the cords that are out there and like the volunteers who are really trying to get to work, you can't have people back there. Like going up to the question box is one thing, but going up to the scoring table to ask a question is another. Yellow cards and red cards are used in the First Tech Challenge to manage team and robot behavior that does not align with the mission of First. And then there's a really cool link to the mission of First. Recommend reading it. Yellow and red cards are not limited to just the competition area. Teams that display egregious behavior in the pit area, judging room, stands, or any other location of the tournament can be issued a yellow card or red card for egregious behavior. Egregious or repeated, 3 times or more, robot or team member behavior at a tournament can result in a yellow card and/or red card. Yellow cards are additive, meaning that a second yellow card is automatically converted into a red card. So, if at the beginning of the day your team is issued a yellow card because someone didn't wear safety glasses in the pits a few times and they got a yellow card for it, that yellow card will follow you throughout your day. And then if your robot damages the field, 2 yellow cards will become a red card. Or if you heard the SKYSTONEs and you get a yellow card for it, those 2 yellow cards will turn into a red card. And red cards disqualify you from just completely disqualify you from that match that you're playing, I believe. And we'll have to check that in the rules, but I'm pretty sure that's how that goes. The head referee may assign a yellow card as a warning or a red card for disqualification in a match. Yeah, so a red card is disqualification in that match or your following one. So if you get your next yellow card like in a match, that will disqualify you if you already had one before. If you get it before your next match, I think it would disqualify you from the next one. Yeah, and the referees will talk about it during the drivers and coaches meeting. And a yellow or a red card is signaled by the head referee standing in front of the team's alliance station and holding a yellow or red card in the air. To issue the second yellow card, the head referee will stand in front of the team's alliance station and hold a yellow card and a red card. The head referee will signal the second yellow card after the match has ended. Yeah, I've went over that before. Your yellow cards don't carry over from the qualification matches into the elimination matches. So during your tournaments, if you get one during your qualification matches and you're selected for the tournament, they will not follow you into your elimination matches. And yellow and red cards do not carry from one meet to the next. So if you have a bad day, it's okay. You have a chance to do better the next time. This next section about yellow and red cards off the competition field is the egregious behavior. And yeah, so this T3 really goes over some more of the common egregious behavior. So referees do have the final gameplay and scoring authority during the competition. Their rulings are final. The referees will not review any recorded match replays or photographs. All questions about a match or scores must be brought forward to the referees by using the referee question box located in the competition area. Only one student from the alliance can enter the question box. So Team A, Team B of the Red Alliance, you have to choose one student from the entire alliance, whether they're Team A or Team B, to be a representative in the question box. All questions must be brought forward within the outlined time. So during qualification matches, a team must enter the question box to dispute a match within a period of 3 matches following the disputed match. Now, our referees are busy reffing those matches, but they will do their best to get to you, and they won't make you break this rule. Teams participating in the final 2 qualification matches must report to the question box within 5 minutes after the announcement of the match score. For elimination matches, a team must enter the referee question box to dispute a match before the start of the next match played by the alliance, regardless if the team is playing in the next match. So, with 3 teams being picked, depending on how big your league tournament is, you have to go into the question box before you play that next match. So, Team A, B, and C, still 1 student from the entire alliance of Team A, B, and C to go into the question box, and they have to be there before that alliance starts their next match. And then questions about the last match of the finals must be brought to the question box no later than 5 minutes after the announcement of the match score. And students, when they go to the question box, and it has to be students, must support their questions by referencing specific rules or posts to the Q&A section of the official First Check Challenge form. That's why the forms are so important. Team members must ask their questions in a gracious and respectful manner, which we all get caught in the heat of the moment, but it's gracious professionalism that makes FTC so great. T4, no team member, or tournament attendee is allowed to set up their own Wi-Fi or wireless communication in the venue. So, yeah, so no hotspots, no ad hoc, no Nintendo DS peer-to-peer, no Bluetooth communication with robots in the competition area. This is usually an issue mostly by people who haven't been to a FTC competition before. So if you're bringing parents and friends and people from your school, let them know the rule, because having this kind of disturbances with the robot really diminishes what a robot can do. No team member, or tournament attendee shall interfere with a team's Wi-Fi direct communication with their own robot. The penalty for this is the entire disqualification of the entire team from the tournament and the removal from the venue property. I haven't ever seen this happen before. Hopefully it will never happen in Iowa. So, teams are encouraged to report wireless security vulnerabilities to the Field Technical Advisor, FTAs. Wi-Fi connectivity between Android devices used as the robot controller and driver station is allowed. Additionally, in the pits only, Wi-Fi connectivity between the same Android devices and a computing device, phone, tablet, or computer, is allowed for robot programming purposes only. So like near the practice field and such, so you guys can make adjustments. So that way your teams can make adjustments to the robots. Team members may be asked by tournament director to use a specific Wi-Fi channel for the tournament day, and teams must comply with this. Each registered team may enter only 1 robot into the first Tech Challenge competition. It is expected that teams will make changes to their robot throughout the season and at competitions. So I saw an email chain earlier in the month about modular or having modular assemblies for your robot. That's not what this rule is addressing. So it's against the rule to compete with 1 robot while a second is being adjusted or assembled at a tournament. It's against the rule to switch back and forth between multiple robots in a tournament. It's against the rule to register and attend concurrent tournaments with a second robot. And it is against the rule to use a robot built by another team at a tournament. Violations of this rule will be immediately considered egregious and deliberate violation of the rule. And T8, this is talking about your drive teams. Only 4 team representatives are allowed in the competition area: 2 student drivers, 1 coach, and 1 human player who are identified by badges labeled driver, coach, and human player. If you have your badges from last year, please use them. If you need one, use gaffer's tape and a Sharpie with coach, driver, human player, and media. And we will be providing buttons at the league tournament, but for your league meets, please use gaffer's tape or the buttons you have from last season. Yeah, only student team members wearing a badge labeled as driver may touch the robot during match, so your coach cannot set your driver on the field or cannot set your robot on the field. Team Yeah, team representatives beyond 2 student drivers, 1 coach, and 1 human player will be asked to leave the competition area immediately. There should, depending on your venue capacity, there may be a media line for your team's media representative to be in to take videos and photos of the match. Other times, you just have to stay out of the competition area and stay a bit out of the way. But there should be some opportunities to get some really nice photos and really nice media of your team. Only 1 human player represents the entire alliance. I went over this earlier. For qualification matches, an alliance must decide which team will name the human player. And if the alliance can't decide, it's the team labeled red 1 or blue 1 for the alliance. That's the team that will decide. And then for elimination matches, the captain of the alliance has that responsibility. Playing field access. Team members cannot enter the playing field for any reason other than to place or retrieve their robots. Teams may not measure, test, or adjust field or game elements. Inspection of the playing field elements by team members to determine scoring is not allowed. The consequences for violating this rule are a minor penalty, a major penalty. Well, for a minor penalty, for violation of this rule during match setup or following the end of match. Major penalty for violations of this rule that delay the start of the match. Violations of this rule outside normal match play may result in a yellow card. If a team feels the playing field is not set up correctly, they should notify a referee or an FTA prior to the start of the match. T10, pre-match robot placement. At the beginning of the match, each alliance robot must set up on the playing field according to section 4.51 pre-match in the game manual part 2. After robots are set up on the playing field, drive teams will stand inside the alliance station. The human player for the alliance must stand inside the designated human player station. During the qualification matches, the blue alliance robot are set up on the playing field first, unless the red alliance waives their right to set up on the playing field second. Excuse me. During the elimination matches, the 3rd and 4th seeded alliance robots are set up on the playing field first, unless the higher seed alliance waives their right to set up on the playing field second. The alliance color does not change the seeding of a team during elimination matches. If the 4th seed defeats the 1st seed in the semifinals, they will still have to place their robot on the field first in the finals because their seeding will be lower than the 2nd or 3rd seed. During elimination matches, 3 team alliances may only place robots that are intended to compete in that match. Only 2 robots are placed for the 2 teams competing in a match. The alliance cannot swap the 3rd robot in for a robot already placed. So if teams A, B, and C are an alliance, and team C is disabled, and for their next match, team C puts their robot down, you can't switch that robot out again. So, like, it's just these things to keep in mind. Teams may implicitly waive their right to place their robots on the playing field last by placing their robots on the playing field before or with the opposing alliance. There's no need to tell the referee. Teams waive their right by the act of placing their robots on the playing field. So if Red Alliance doesn't need to make any last adjustments, doesn't need to charge up any batteries, they're all ready and set to go, they don't need to wait for the Blue Alliance to set up first. They can set up with them or prior to them. However, teams that unnecessarily delay the beginning of a match and or field reset will incur a minor penalty for each offense. T11, the state of the field is recorded as the match is played by the scoring referees. Scores may not be announced to teams until sometime after the match is complete. At some tournaments, live scoring software may be used to show the status of the match as it's played, with the final official score displayed at the following end of match. I believe that we're attempting to do live scoring again this year. Yeah, but it's not guaranteed at your individual league meets. However, at your tournaments, we're going to do our best to make that happen. Last year was a learning experience, and we're still learning. There are no team-requested timeouts during qualification matches. If no member of the drive team is present in the driver's station at the start of the match, that team is declared a no-show. If a robot cannot report for a match, at least one member of the drive team should report to the playing field for the match. So this goes hand in hand with not having team requested timeouts. If your robot needs some time in the pits and you know you have a back-to-back matches and it's not enough time to get it fixed, your team has to send one member of the drive team to, be with their alliance partner, or you will be considered a no-show. And that means you get 0 points. If you win, you get 0 points. If you tie, you get 0 points. And if you lose, you get 0 points. Teams will receive a minimum of 5 minutes between consecutive matches. During the elimination rounds, each alliance will be allotted one timeout of no more than 3 minutes. Timeouts must be called at least 2 minutes before their next match's starting time. The timeout begins at the time their match was going to start. So for your league meets, that section isn't going to apply, but at your tournaments, this will be kind of important. All team members, coaches, and their guests must wear ANSI Z87.1 certified safety glasses while in the pit or competition area. Prescription glasses with approved commercial off-the-shelf side shields are allowed. So again, you have to wear your safety glasses in the pits and competition field, and so do your coaches and all of your guests. And first requires all teams to bring and supply approved safety glasses for its team members, mentors, and guests for each competition. Tinted lenses are allowed if the tournament personnel can see the volunteers, spectators, or team members' eyes through the safety glasses. Sunglasses or deeply shaded safety glasses used in an outdoor tournament environment are not acceptable. So at certain tournaments and certain event league meets, I've seen teams provide their stash of safety glasses for spectators, but it would help the host if you were to bring safety glasses for the guests you know are going to attend. Skateboards, roller skates, hoverboards, and drones are not allowed in any tournament. They're a safety hazard. No live bands, blowhorns, banging stick whistles are allowed. They prevent teams from hearing important announcements. They can be confiscated. Batteries must be charged in an open, well-ventilated area in your pit or in the pit area. Painting or applying harmful product sprays or aerosols are not allowed anywhere in the tournament. This includes the pit, competition, and spectator areas. Pit displays may not exceed 10 foot by 10 foot by 10 foot or a limit set by the venue. For some of your league meets, you will not be given the 10 by 10 by 10 foot normal constraint as set by first because of limited size. They're still going to try to give you enough space to work on your robot and charge your batteries, but some venues just don't have enough space for every team to have 10 by 10 by 10. Teams are not allowed to use radios and walkie-talkies anywhere in the venue. There is no running anywhere during the tournament. Teams are not allowed to save seating space as there is often not enough seating to hold everyone. Repeated offenses could be considered egregious and teams could face consequences for violating this rule. This is egregious behavior. Soldering, gluing, brazing, or large power tools are not allowed in the pit or competition areas unless the tournament director specifically allows them. Don't expect them to allow it. Because of site rules or contracts, FERFs cannot allow teams or individuals to sell items such as t-shirt, pins, etc. at any tournaments. Fundraising for a cause is allowed with consent of the tournament director. Fundraising for a team is not. So if your team has a fundraiser they're planning this year and they want to do it at a league meet, you need to talk to your tournament director and they're under no obligation to say yes. You have to take that answer graciously. And it's just best not to try to sell anything at a league meet. Check with the tournament director before bringing food to a tournament, as some venues will not allow outside food on site because of contracts and agreements. That is the Iowa Championship. Please don't bring food to the Iowa Championship. We know it's a long day, but there's a lot of places around to eat, but you cannot bring food into the venue. There are 2 concession stands in the venue. You can't bring outside food or drink into the venue. Okay, where are we? Open-toed or open-back shoes are not allowed in the pit area or competition area. You can't wear Crocs, I'm sorry. They have to be closed-toed shoes and closed-heeled shoes for safety. Once the autonomous portion of the match ends, drive teams will have 5 seconds to pick up their driver station. The scoring system display will provide a visual and audio cues for drive teams to pick up their driver station. After the 5 seconds, there will be a 3, 2, 1 countdown, and the driver-controlled period of the match will begin. So just you gotta be quick with it. Teams competing in a meet, league tournament, qualifying tournament, and championship tournament will compete in no fewer than 5 qualification matches and no more than 6. A team may not encourage another team to throw a match or play beneath its ability. Likewise, a team may not let another team coerce them into throwing a match or playing beneath their own ability. First considers the action of a team influencing another team to throw a match, to deliberately miss scoring objectives, etc., incompatible with the first values and not a strategy any team should employ. Violations of this rule are likely to escalate rapidly to a yellow card or red cards and may lead to dismissal from event. All right, Section 4, Tournament Day Outline. So there should be a separate outline for just meets, but this will be similar to, the actual tournament, super qualifiers, state, etc. First Tech Challenge tournaments may pack many activities into one day. The main events for a tournament, qualifying tournament, league tournament, state championship, world championship, are team check-in, robot and field inspection, judges interviews, drivers meeting, opening ceremony, qualification matches, alliance selection, elimination matches, and awards and closing ceremonies. For league meets, these events are team check-in, robot and field inspection, drivers meeting, and qualification matches. Some league meets may include practice judging, depending on the host and the volunteers that are around. But the minimum are team check-in, robot and field inspection, drivers meeting, and qualification matches. For team check-in, very important, your consent and release forms. Each student competing at a First Tech Challenge tournament must have a signed consent and release form completed by a parent or legal guardian. Students cannot compete without this. These forms can be filled out electronically or by hard copy. If your team fills this out electronically, a printed roster showing that each student's parent or guardian has electronically filled out the consent and release form online. This is shown on the roster with the green check mark. If you guys look into your first FTC dashboards, that'll be there. If you have hard copies, the coach or mentor must bring a signed hard copy of the form signed by the student's parent or legal guardian. The roster from the team registration system must be handed in at event registration, regardless of the coach is handing in the hard copies of each consent release form. If the roster from the team registration system is blank, the coach should write in the names of each student competing at the tournament. So, to summarize, you need the roster from the team registration system, a printed roster showing that each student, parent, or guardian has electronically filled out the consent form. I think those two can be the same. And then you need a roster from the team registration system and your hard copies. Team check-in packets. Once checked in, the coach will receive their team packet. Team packets generally include drive team badges, a judging schedule, and a map of venue and other information that's important to teams. For your league meets, it might just be a map of the venue or a practice judging schedule or your robot inspection, your field inspection, and a rough time for when qualification matches are going to start. Teams should set up their pit area and get familiar with the venue, including where the practice and playing fields are and where judging takes place. Robot and field inspection. The First Tech Challenge robots are required to pass a robot and field inspections before being allowed to compete. These inspections ensure that all robot rules are met. Copies of these 2 sheets are in the appendixes or the appendix of Game Manual Part 1 and of the screen that we went to before. Judges interviews. First Tech Challenge tournaments, there are 3 parts to the judging process: an interview with the judges, evaluation of performance during the tournament, and an evaluation of the engineering notebook. Each team will have 10 to 15-minute fact-finding interview with a panel of 2 or 3 judges. At the start of the interview, students will get a minimum of 5 minutes to present to the judges. After a team's 5-minute presentation, the judges will have the opportunity to ask questions about the team, the robot, and outreach efforts. So to clarify, they have the opportunity to do a 5-minute presentation, up to 5 minutes, and then they'll have more time for question and answers with the judges. The judges' interviews take place before any qualification matches, so the entire team may be interviewed. When teams arrive at the tournament, the interview schedule should be included in the registration materials. Teams must know when they will be interviewed and arrive to the interview room early. Each team should have at least 2 student team representatives and a robot available. However, the entire team is encouraged to join in. Mentors, no more than 2, are welcome to watch the judges' interview at most tournaments but cannot take part in the interview. I'm not sure if that will be the case at State. We're still trying to figure that out to see if we have room in the judging rooms. But once we know, we will let you guys know. Teams may not opt out of judges' interviews. Teams may attend their scheduled judges' interviews if their robots have not passed inspection. So if your robot hasn't made it through inspection, but you have your judges interview, take your robot with. It doesn't matter that it hasn't made it through inspection yet. Just take it with, do your presentation, answer those questions. Driver's meeting. The driver's meeting takes place before the start of the qualification matches and is a time when the drive team meets with the referees. During this time, the head referee gives a brief outline of what is expected of teams. They will provide venue-specific information such as queuing paths and explains any signal and commands referees will give during matches. So this is where the referees will show you what their signal for pinning is. So if you're pinning a robot. It's also where they'll show you how they're going to signal a yellow card and a red card. Practice time. At some tournaments, practice fields are available for teams to practice throughout the tournament. They're offered at a first-come, first-served basis. At most league meets, I'm not sure if that will be a resource that's around. Don't plan on it being around, and if it is, take advantage of it. Please contact the host if you would like to know if there is going to be a practice field. Opening ceremony. The opening ceremony is the official kickoff of the event. During the open ceremony, a tournament official or MC will welcome the teams, introduce dignitaries and other special guests, and introduce judges and the referees. Then the game will be described, sometimes with the video, and immediately after qualification matches take place. Teams that are scheduled in the first 4 qualification matches will be asked by volunteers to line up in queue before the opening ceremonies. The qualification match schedule will be available before the start of opening ceremony. It is the team's responsibility to check the schedule and make sure that they are on time for their matches. If you are not on time for your matches at some events, such as State, if you are not in queue, you will be considered a no-call, no-show, and you will not be allowed to start the match. And if the match starts without you, you're still a no-call, no-show. So be very mindful of your schedule. Qualification matches. Teams are randomly assigned to qualification matches and alliances. The schedule is available before opening ceremonies on the day of the tournament. The schedule shows alliance partners, match pairings, and the alliance color. These matches start immediately after opening ceremonies and follow the qualification match schedule. The Q volunteer crew works teams throughout the day to maintain qualification match schedule. Teams must pay attention to match schedule and listen for announcements throughout the day. For calculating ranking, they have a really nice table here with some examples. And basically it goes your average ranking points, average tiebreaker points, highest match score, random electronic draw. And we usually don't get to random electronic draw. So yeah, and the scoring system takes care of it. So I recommend going over this. Alliance selection. Alliance selection this is more of a thing at your tournaments and your super qualifiers and state and worlds. At most league meets, you won't have this. You won't have this at all. So this would be a nice thing to go over with your team, just so that way you know the process of it. Elimination matches go semifinals and finals. So seed 1 and seed 4 will compete against each other. Seed 2 and seed 3 will compete against each other. The winner of semifinal 1, the winner of semifinal 2. There's a nice chart over here. Again, this is only going to become important during your tournament and beyond. Awards and closing ceremony. The awards and closing ceremony celebrate the teams and their accomplishments throughout the tournament, as well as the volunteers who helped make the tournament possible. At the awards and closing ceremony, the finalists and winners of each award are announced. At most tournaments, the judges will line up to high-five each team as they receive an award. 4.12, team spirit and styling. Part of the fun about being a team member is the way your team styles itself with team shirts, buttons, hats, cheers, costumes, etc. When deciding on a team name or acronym, consider how to work the theme around it to make for a team more fun and recognizable. Refer to the marketing and outreach section of the website for more information about First and First Tech Challenge logo requirements. That is important if you plan on incorporating the logo. There's a nice link to it here in Game Manual Part 1. Banners and flags. Do not use banners or flags to section off seating. Again, saving group seats is not allowed. It is egregious behavior. Hang banners in pit stations only and not on pit walls. We don't want to damage the venue. Teams may bring banners into the competition area, but please do not hang them there. This area is designed for official first sponsors banners. Spectators and etiquette. Teams are allowed to have 2 student drivers, 1 coach, and 1 human player at the playing state field during their scheduled matches. Spectators are not allowed in the designated competition area, whether they have safety glasses or not. Some tournaments may provide media passes for an additional team member to gain access into a designated media area. Access to this area is only allowed with a media pass and only while the media representative's team is on the playing field. So if Team A's media person is in the media box, but Team A is not playing, they are not allowed to be in the media box. Spectators blocking the sidelines or accessing the media area without a pass will be asked to move. Repeated violations of this rule are considered egregious behavior. Scouting. This is just an overview of what scouting is and what some recommended areas to gather information are. I highly recommend scouting at all your league meets, especially with the availability of the Orange Alliance. I highly recommend it personally. And we might do a webinar later about scouting and some scouting methods if there's interest. Section 5, tournament types. 5.1, a scrimmage. It's an unofficial First Tech Challenge event where teams do not advance. Teams compete at a scrimmage solely to prepare for an official tournament. Anyone can host a scrimmage. You can have as many teams as you want. You're encouraged to tell our local affiliate partner, Rebecca Whitaker, that such a tournament is taking place. And the team who hosts it is responsible for finding a location, organizing the format of the day, and inviting other teams to participate. And they're also responsible for having a field. Meets and league play. A league meet is a one-field competition that uses the same field and game as the other tournaments. Teams may take part in as few or as many league meets as they choose, but competing in more improves the team's league ranking. So we told you guys that you have to compete in at least 3 and at most 5. We recommend that you compete in 5 if that's possible, because that will help your ranking points and your tiebreaker points, because you'll have a better selection of matches to choose from. Yeah. If you have questions about the scheduling, contact us at FTC Iowa and we'll give you some more information. Qualifying tournaments and league tournaments, hosted and managed by a First Tech Challenge affiliate partners or affiliate partner appointed hosts. Qualifying tournaments follow the format outlined in sections 4.0. Qualifying tournaments are held before state championship tournaments in regions where there are many teams. The number of teams advancing to the state championship tournament depends on the capacity of the state championship tournament, the number of qualifying tournaments, and the number of teams attending the qualifying tournament. Yeah, so that's quite a mouthful. And if you have some questions about if you have questions about the number of teams advancing from your leagues to your qualifiers to state, it's 12. Literally 12 from each. And then from state to worlds, we're not sure yet, so we'll let you know when we know. Super qualifying tournaments, again, 12 are advancing. Championship tournaments, we don't know yet. Eligibility and advancement criteria, we're all North American teams. And yeah, this basically goes over how you're eligible. So all teams are eligible to be considered for all judged awards unless they've won them like somewhere else. And I don't mean like, oh, you won it at a tournament, so you can't win it at super qualifiers. It's not how that works. So just you're allowed to win awards at each level. And then it goes over eligibility for advancement through all of these tournaments, and then the order of advancement. I highly recommend having this handy and having your team know the order of advancement. It's quite a long list. It goes to 52. Hopefully we will never have to go to 52. But it's good to know at least like the top, 18, since there's 12, and I'm sure there will be duplicates somewhere, anywhere in some competition. All right, Section 7 and 8, the robot, the next point on the agenda. So 7.1 overview, 7.2 robot control system. So a first tech challenge robot is controlled by an Android-based platform powered by Snapdragon processors. Teams will use 2 Android devices to control their robot and compete in a sports start model of the competition. One Android device is mounted directly to the robot and acts as a robot controller. The other Android device is connected to a pair of gamepads and acts as the driver station. For more information, please click this link. It's also in the resource library, and it's FTC Robot Building Resources. 7.2.1 is robot technology definition. So your CDIM, your CMC, CSC, all that. It also defines what a driver station is and your logic level converter. I recommend becoming familiar with all of these as you go throughout your season and change your electronics. 7.3 robot rules. There is a legal and illegal parts list, also accessible through this game manual. And you can also go on the official forums if you have questions about your parts. General robot rules, it's the intent of first to encourage creativity and design as long as it does not present a safety hazard or unfairly affect the opportunities of any opposing alliance teams to compete. Although there is significant creative freedom allowed in robot design rules, teams should consider the adverse effects of any design decisions they make. When considering your robot design and your game strategy, ask yourself these following questions. If the answer to any of these questions is yes, the design part is not allowed. Also, in Iowa, the Rev Control module is not allowed in competition for the 2019-2020 season. If you look on the FTC blogs, not our FTC Iowa blog, but the FTC blog, they have some more information about that, I believe, in their regions that it is allowed. But we are not a location that's piloting the Rev Control module. So for those questions that you need to ask yourself if your robot part or design is allowed, first question, could it damage or disable another robot? Could it damage the playing field? Could it injure a participant or volunteer? Is there already a rule that restricts this? Is everybody did this, would the gameplay be impossible? RGO1, illegal parts. That's a list of just what makes a part illegal. It goes from anything from hydraulic devices to those that pose an unnecessary risk of entanglement. So from hydraulic devices to string, those that contain sharp edges or corners, which can usually be fixed with a little bit of duct tape. It's no animal byproducts, nothing that contains liquid or gel materials, because it's a hazard to have on the field when they spill, in addition to those that contain materials that would delay the game if released, so loose ball bearings, coffee beans, etc. Maximum starting size. The maximum size of a robot starting a match is 18 inches by 18 inches by 18 inches. This has not changed from last season. A robot sizing tool will be used as the official gauge to make sure the robots comply with this rule, and this will be seen during robot inspection. To pass inspection, a robot must fit within the sizing tool while the match start configuration without exerting force on the sides or top of the sizing tool. So if your robot is 17 by 17 by 17, but you have a zip tie sticking out, and it's going past 18 inches, that is not allowed. You have to be completely within your own power within 18 inches by 18 inches by 18 inches. You can't just have things popping out that bend to fit the box. It has to fit the box within its own power. Preloaded game elements may extend outside the starting volume constraint. So team markers, not your team alliance markers, but your oh gosh, I'm so sorry. But yeah, those, if you're going to preload them, that's where. A robot must be self-supporting while in the robot sizing tool by either a mechanical means within the robot in a power-off condition. Any restraints used to maintain starting size, that is zip ties, rubber bands, string, etc., must remain attached to the robot for the entire match. A robot initialization routine in autonomous mode that may pre-position servo motors with the robot powered on to the desired stationary position. Your robot controller mount, it's recommended that the robot controller be accessible and visible by field personnel. So that means your phone screen is visible to the FTAs, so if something happens, they can help your robot. Because if it's buried halfway within your robot, they can't reach in and try to tap around and fix it. Maximum robot weight. Robots may not weigh more than 42 pounds, including battery. To account for variances between scales, there will be a half-pound overage allowance on top of the 45-pound weight limit. This weight constraint includes one set of team-supplied alliance markers, which we're going to get to this later, but your teams we're not doing flags anymore. Your team is responsible for making 2 red and 2 blue alliance markers that will attach to either side of your robot and signal what alliance you're on. There's more rules about this later, and we're going to get to it then, but I'm just letting you guys know now, we're not doing flags. You're responsible for alliance markers. And this is about the multiple modules too. If a team is using multiple mechanisms that will be swapped out between matches, all parts and the robot must be weighed together during weight inspection. The robot and all mechanisms must not weigh more than 42 pounds. So this also means that all of the modules have to go in through robot inspection together. If there's one module that's not allowed, it breaks a rule, it's made out of a legal part, that module cannot be used. But they all have to be inspected together. They all have to be weighed together. Team number display, you have to have your team numbers visible from either side of your robot. Yeah, they have to be robust. They have to be a certain size, so 2.5 inches high by 1/2 inch stroke width, and in a contrasting color from the background. Now, alliance markers. Teams must include a team-supplied alliance-specific marker on 2 opposite sides of the robot to easily identify which alliance a robot is assigned to. These markers must be displayed on the same side of the robot as the team number within a 3-inch distance of the number. The alliance marker must be visible to referees during a match. So the red alliance marker must be a solid red square, approximately 2.5 by 2.5 inches. The blue alliance marker must be a solid blue circle, approximately 2.5 inches in diameter. So red circle, 2.5, 2.5. Red square, 2.5, 2.5, blue circle, 2.5 diameter. And your teams are responsible for making 2 of each. Both alliance markers must be removable in order to swap them between matches. Velcro might be helpful for this. It might not be. Depends on the strength of what you can find, because it does have to hold up to the rigors of match play. Allowed energy sources. Electrical energy drawn from approved batteries, a change in position of the robot center of gravity, storage achieved by the deformation of robot parts. Teams must be careful when incorporating spring-like mechanisms and other parts to store energy on the robot by means of part or material deformation. RG08, parts of the robot itself may not be launched, even if the part launched is still connected to the robot by a tether. Launching game scoring elements. Robots can launch scoring elements through the air unless limited by a game-specific rule. These will be seen in Game Manual Part 2. 7.3.2 are robot mechanical parts and materials rules. I really recommend going over all of this as your teams go throughout the season, build their robots, because this has all of the allowed materials and all of the excluded materials. Your allowed materials and legal COTS parts may be modified, drilled, cut, painted, etc., as long as no other rules are violated. Lubricant is allowed if it doesn't contaminate the playing field, scoring elements, or other robots. 7.3.3 are robot electrical parts and materials rules. I really, really recommend going over all of these as your team builds the robot, because it would be unfortunate to have a robot disqualified because their wiring is wrong. Be very, very unfortunate. It also goes over the allowed Android devices and the allowed robot power. It also goes over how many control modules you can have, servo controllers, motor controllers, DC motors, servos, sensors, video cameras, robot wiring. It goes over rules for modifying electronics, and it also gives you your driver station constraints and additional electronics. 7.3.4 robot software rules. I recommend that your team goes over this. It's very important. There are some things that update throughout the season, and you can't compete without it being updated. That's something very important to stay on top of. It talks about autonomous, robot controller app, driver station app, Android device operating systems, Wi-Fi direct channel changing app, software modification, driver station communication, Okay. 7.4, team scoring element. It's subject to the same robot mechanical parts and materials rules in section 7.3.2, the one we just glossed over. Size constraints. The maximum size is 4 inches by 4 inches by 8 inches. The minimum size is 3 inches by 3 inches by 4 inches. So anywhere within that range is allowed. And your team scoring element must be labeled with your team number. The letters must be legible when viewed from 12 inches away. The team number needs to appear only once on the team scoring element. On this element, you're not allowed to have electronics or any other part or material that violates the robot construction rules outlined in section 7.3. Oh yeah, current season scoring elements may not be used as the team scoring element, which means you can't buy a SKYSTONE and slap your team number on it and call that your scoring element. That's not allowed. You can use similar geometry, but you're not allowed to actually use a game element from this season as your scoring element. Section 8, robot inspection. So you want to self-inspect throughout the season before you get to competition, just to ensure that there's nothing that's going to catch you or hang you up while you're going through robot inspection at a competition. Robot initialization routine. A set of programming instructions that runs after init is pressed on the driver station before start for both driver-controlled and autonomous periods. The robot sizing tool is a sturdily constructed device with interior dimensions, 18 inches wide by 18 inches long by 18 inches high. That is one open side with an interior opening size of 18 inches wide by 18 inches long. The sizing tool is used for robot inspection as outlined in section 7.3.1. They might also do the paper test. So if your robot is in the sizing cube, they may slide a piece of paper in between your robot and the wall, and if the paper cannot go freely, you would not count as within the size limit, even though you are within 18 by 18 by 18. It is at the complete discretion of the robot inspector and the tournament and in the venue. This isn't really something you can argue. Just do your best to be well within. Inspection rules 8.4. All robot configurations must be inspected before being used in competition. If significant changes are made to a robot after passing initial inspection, it must be re-inspected before it can compete. Referees or inspectors may request re-inspection of a robot. The robot cannot participate in a match until it passes re-inspection. Refusal to submit to re-inspection will result in team disqualification from the tournament. A robot may be rejected at inspection if the lead inspector considers it unsafe. That's why you want to inspect throughout. That's why you want to self-inspect throughout the year, so that way you know what to expect when you go through robot inspection. Practice matches. Teams must submit their robot for inspection before participating in practice matches. They must do it before they go into qualification matches. And for re-inspection, physical changes to a robot that improve the performance or add capability must pass re-inspection prior to being eligible to play in the next match. So for the multiple modules that are that seem to be illegal this year, this, to me, I4 seems that they would have to go through re-inspection. You'd have to take them all through inspection the first time and have them all weighed together. And as you change your modules, this rule, I4, makes me believe that they would have to go through re-inspection. We might see later in the forums that this is not true, so we all have to keep an eye on it. But to me, that's what this is saying. I5 safety, it is the inspector's responsibility to evaluate robots to ensure the robot is designed to operate safely. Passing inspection. Robot inspection is a pass or fail process. A robot has passed inspection when all requirements listed on the official First Tech Challenge robot and field inspection sheets are successfully met and recorded as passed by an inspector. So again, those sheets are in the appendix and on the SKYSTONE resource library. I7, all mechanisms are inspected. For inspection, a robot must be presented with all mechanisms, including parts of each configurations and decorations that will be used on the robot during competition. Robots are allowed to play matches with a subset of mechanisms that were present during the inspection. Only mechanisms that were present during inspection may be added, removed, or configured between matches. The robot should be assembled in typical configuration used for matches played when reporting for inspection. A robot and all mechanisms must be inspected in every starting configuration. If the mechanisms are swapped out in between matches, the reconfigured robot must still meet all robot and inspection rules. The total of all electronics, motor servos, core modules, Android devices used to build all of the mechanisms of base robot, whether they are used on the robot at the same time or not, may not exceed the constraints specified in the robot rules. So this means I was wrong on I4. But this does mean if you have a limit of 8 motors allowed on your robot, and you have 4 configurations, and each one needs 2 motors, you can't exceed 8 motors in total for all of your modules. So that's something to definitely keep in mind if this is a route that your team wants to go. Wheeled tread, playing field damage test, robot inspectors have the authority to ask that a team test their wheels or treads because they feel that it might cause damage to the playing field. Not every tread or wheel can be evaluated and posted as legal or an illegal part. Therefore, the tread test is a quick way to find out if a team's wheels or treads are competition legal. So green grippy tread, some of you may be familiar with. Tank treads, just very grippy treads may be asked to be inspected like this to ensure that they won't damage the field. The process is the robot inspector should place the robot on top of a field tile against an immovable surface and run the wheels at full power for 15 seconds. If there's any physical damage, they won't be allowed. But most of the time, there won't be. Team supplied scoring element inspection. Your team supplied scoring elements will be inspected before the start of the competition. When robot inspection takes place, you have to bring it back if it's changed after initial inspection. Section 9 through 10, judging and award criteria. So this goes over engineering notebooks, how judging works, and FTC award criteria. Teams have spent a significant number of hours designing, building, and programming the robot, learning what it takes to become part of a team. For many teams, the event is the award for all of their hard work throughout the season. While there are several types of events, they all offer a fun and exciting way for teams to show the results of their efforts. Oh, all right. I really recommend going through every single part of this. So section 9.2, very important. This has some really good information on the engineering notebook. It also has several links to things that are very important. It also goes over the engineering notebook requirements by award. Again, way more links. Goes over judging schedule. We currently do not do feedback to teams. We do not do feedback forms. If you were reading the FTC blogs, it may seem that they may be trying to do something in the coming seasons, but as of right now, we do not do judging feedback. Video award submission guidelines are also in here, 9.3.4. And again, that'll just be for the Iowa Championship. Award categories. So just to make sure that this is very clear to all teams, submitting for the control award does not remove you from Inspire consideration. We recommend that all teams submit for the control award. There's very detailed instructions as to how to submit for the control award, both in the game manual Part 1 appendix and in the season resources. Then again, it has this section of the manual has all sorts of information about each award. We're running short on time, which is why I'm going through all this now. Dean's List, Section 10. I recommend that every team tries to nominate a student for Dean's List. It's a very, very cool experience for all students involved. It also has the criteria for Dean's List. And then we're in the appendix. So game form Q&A. So you click that. It'll take you to the forms. It's all nicely sectioned off. I really, really recommend that you keep an eye on the forms. I know that there's a way to register to use the forms in the season resources. And just, it's a great way to ask questions and get real responses. It's really a really valuable resource. All right, Game Manual Part 2. This is everything that's actually important about the game, but we are running short on time. Yeah, Section 1, Section 2, we went over in Game Manual Part 1. Section 3, Game Manual Part 2 does have a lot of rules and regulations for your robot that you can use to argue your points. However, the forms will trump the game manual, so it's very important to keep that in mind. This goes through the game description and the game narrative that we all saw in that awesome game video. It has several illustrations of the playing field and your areas. 4.4 game definitions, become very familiar with this, including blocking and capping and controlling. These are all very important because at least controlling, and blocking can issue you penalties. Deliver, depot, disabled, endgame. Again, all of this is very important, and I recommend you go over this in great detail with your teams. It also defines the human player station and inside completely in. This goes over yellow cards and red cards again, which we went over in Game Manual Part 1. It goes over where your specific zones are for scoring. All right. 4.5.1. Field personnel will place 24 stones into each of the 2 stone supplies. Teams have the option to preload only 1 capstone into their robot prior to the start of the match. Teams that elect to not preload their capstone may introduce it into the depot via their alliance's human player at any time during the driver-controlled period. So that's 1. Capstones that are not preloaded in the robot must be placed adjacent to the stone supply. Prior to setting up on the field, alliance partner teams will decide which team of their alliance supplies the human player. We went over this in Game Manual Part 1. When robots and drive teams are in position, human player must also be in their human player station and stay there for the remainder of the match. You cannot step out. Once referees give the setup complete signal, drive teams may no longer touch their robots until the conclusion of the match, and drive teams may not touch their driver stations or controllers until the autonomous period had ended. So this is very important for your drive teams to keep an eye out for, because once the referees give the setup complete signal, you're not allowed to do either of those things. It goes over autonomous, which is not required. It goes over different ways to score on autonomous and that. Driver controlled 4.5.3 driver controlled period. You can earn points based on stone delivery. So each stone or skystone delivered by going under the corresponding alliance skybridge for the robot is worth 1 point to the alliance that delivered the stone. Your robot has to completely pass under the alliance skybridge. You can't shove it, hurt it, or feed it through. Your robot has to enter under the alliance skybridge completely to get that point. Placing at the end of a match each stone or skystone that is in the foundation and not in contact with an alliance robot when all scoring elements have come to rest earns 1 point. Skyscraper bonuses. Alliance will earn 2 points for each skyscraper level of their tallest skyscraper that is not in contact with an alliance robot when all scoring elements have come to rest after the end of the driver controlled period. All points for skystones and stones will be counted at the end of the match. So if you were to have a really nice skyscraper and then during the last second of the match it were to topple over, your points for that really nice skyscraper will not count because it's not present at the end of the match. This goes into endgame. Capping. An alliance will earn points for placing a capstone on their foundation. Each team can only place 1 capstone. So Team A, Team B. Team A has to place 1. Team B has to place 1. Team A cannot place both. Team B cannot place both. And you can place neither if you want to. You get points for capping, foundation moved, and parking. So if you park in your alliance's building zone, you get points. Post-match, that's when scoring happenings. Penalty scoring. Penalty points are added to the non-offending alliance's score at the end of the match. Minor penalties give the non-offending alliance 5 points, and major penalties give the non-offending alliance 20 points. That's a lot for this game. 4.5.7 is the flowchart of match play. 4.6, rules of gameplay. This is very important. This is where a lot of penalties will be assigned. Safety rules. A lot of this we went over in Game Manual Part 1. Robot extension outside the playing field perimeter. This is not allowed at all this season. If any portion exits the perimeter, the team will be issued a yellow card and it may be disabled immediately for the remainder of the match, unless allowed by game-specific rules listed in 4.6.3, which... safety gear. All members of the drive team have to wear safety glasses. We went over this in Game Manual Part 1. General game rules. This G1 is just about your drive team and who's allowed in the playing area, the competition area. G2, playing field access, who's allowed in the playing field. G3, pre-match robot placement. We went over this in Game Manual Part 1. Robot starting volume. We went over this in Part 1. Robot setup alignment. Teams may align their robots during pre-match setup if they do so with legal components that are part of the robot and can be reset to be within the 18-inch cube starting volume constraint. A single member of the drive team may also align the robot by sight if they are next to the robot and does not delay the start of a match. So if you need to place your robot on the field, it has to be touching the wall adjacent to your driver station, and it can be set up by a person. Alliance and human player stations. The first instance of leaving a station will result in a warning, with any following instances resulting in a minor penalty. If you leave it for a safety reason, that's okay. Opposing alliances drive teams on the same side of the field cannot distract or interfere with each other, nor off the field scoring elements. This includes your human player. Starting gameplay early is a minor penalty. Referees have the option of issuing a major penalty in place of a minor penalty if the early start results in a competitive advantage for the offending alliance. Be mindful of this. Late start of the autonomous period. Teams participating in the autonomous period are expected to press the start with 30-second button on their driver station Android device, and then place the driver station in the hands-off location without delay when the field personnel signal the start of the autonomous period. A minor penalty is assessed for violating this rule. The referees can increase that if they wish. Robot control during autonomous period. This is not allowed except in cases of personal or equipment safety. Major penalty will be assessed for violating this rule. Robots must park at the end of the autonomous and driver-controlled periods. That means at the end of 30 seconds, your robot cannot be moving. Unless, like, gravity. Like, if you're tipping over, that's not going to be held against you. Drive team contact with playing field or robot during a match. The drive team is prohibited from making contact with the playing field, robot, or any game element except for allowed human player activities. The first instance will result in a warning, with any following instances resulting in a minor penalty. Contact that affects scoring and/or gameplay will result in the issuance of a yellow card at the discretion of the referees. Autonomous to driver controlled position. You guys can review that. It's G12. G13, G13, same deal. G14, certifying the score at match end. Scores will be tracked by field personnel throughout the autonomous and driver-controlled periods of the match. At the end of the match, the final score will be certified as quickly as possible. A change in the state of game element or robot at the end of the match after its final score is recorded will not change an already recorded score. Scoring elements will not be recounted at the end of the match. Robots deliberately detaching parts, tethered components that are moving independently of the main robot are considered a detached component and are illegal. Robots may not grasp, grab, or attach to any game element, robot, or structure other than the scoring elements. You're not allowed to grab or grasp the skybridge. Destruction, damage, tipping. Robot actions aimed at the destruction, damage, tipping over, or entanglement of robots or game elements are not in the spirit of first. If the damage is ruled to be deliberate or chronic, the offending team will receive a major penalty and a yellow card. Pinning, trapping, or blocking robots. These are the definitions you guys need to see that are in this game manual part 2. Robots must, a robot cannot cause an opposing alliance to be pinned, trapped, or blocked. If a referee determines this rule is violated, the offending alliance will receive a minor penalty for every 5 seconds they are in violation. If a referee declares this, the robot must immediately move away at least 3 feet or 1.5 tiles from the pinned, trapped, or blocked robot. A robot cannot incur this type of penalty during the autonomous period unless it's determined to be deliberate. You're not allowed to force opponents to break the rules. That's not gracious or professional. Robots may not deliberately remove game elements from playing field during a match. Game elements that inadvertently fall outside of the playing field will be returned to the playing field by a field personnel at the earliest safe, convenient opportunity at a non-scoring location approximately where it left the field. Teams deliberately moving game elements from the field will incur a minor penalty per game element removed from the playing field. Scoring elements in a scoring area that are in contact with or controlled by a robot in the corresponding alliance for the scoring area have 0 score value. Game-specific rules listed in 4.6.3 that allow robot contact with scoring elements take precedence over this general game rule. Post-match removal of game elements from robots. You must be able to remove the game elements from the robots post-game. Robot manipulation of scoring elements. You are not allowed to damage the scoring elements. Robot or scoring elements in 2 or more scoring areas. Robots or scoring elements that are in 2 or more scoring areas earn points for only the highest value achievement. If a referee disables a robot, it will not be eligible to score or earn points. Match replays. Matches are replayed at the discretion of the head referee only for a failure of a non-team supplied game or field element or verified Wi-Fi interference that was likely to have impacted the alliance won the match. So this is why not having hotspots is very important. Egregious behavior we went over, illegal uses of game elements we went over. Well, you are not allowed to deliberately use game elements to ease or amplify the difficulty of scoring or any game activity. A major penalty will be assessed. Game-specific rules, only one scoring element may be delivered at a time. A human player may not deliver stones and or capstones prior to the start of the driver-controlled period. Stones and capstones may only be hand-delivered to the Alliance's depot. Teams may not bring tools or devices into the playing field for handling stones or capstones. Accommodations and exceptions for a human player with disabilities will be made at the discretion of the event coordinator. Please inform them beforehand. Human player cannot break the vertical plane of the perimeter wall when there is a robot or scoring element already in the depot. This is the safety rule. Human player cannot hand-deliver a stone or capstone in the playing field when there is a or they cannot deliver a stone into the playing field when there's a robot or scoring element already in the depot. So stone or robot, you can't put one in. Any stones that are hand-delivered by the human player during autonomous are not eligible to receive points. Stones and or capstones must be in the depot and completely on the playing field floor prior to being controlled by a robot. Violations of GS1 will result in minor penalties per occurrence. You are not allowed to interfere with the opposing alliance's scoring attempts during autonomous. That will be considered deliberate. We still have a whole lot of game manual left, but a lot of this is a spreadsheet of like a scoring summary and a rule summary, and then the appendix. So please, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Please just send questions to ftc.iowa.leagues@gmail.com, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. And in the game manual webinar agenda, at the bottom of the sheet, there is a link to a Google form. This is going to help us decide whether or not to hold more webinars. It's all entirely dependent on need. So thank you guys very much for your time, and good luck this season.